So in this presentation, I'm going to talk about an article relating to unemployment and the labor force, and I'm going to show how it relates to what we learned in class. So the article I found was published in the Wall Street Journal, and it was titled "U.S. added 245,000 jobs last month as hiring slowed," and how the unemployment rate ticked down to 6.7%. The article talks about how um, employers added less jobs in November than compared to October, but the unemployment rate in November um, is still less than the unemployment rate in October, which was 6.9% in October. It dropped to 6.7%, despite the fact that less jobs were being added. And we learned multiple things in class which could explain why this is the case, and I'll go into that a little later. One of the reasons why um, the unemployment rate could be going down, and even despite less jobs being added, could be because of the amount of people that have stopped looking for a job. And some of the reasons that this could be happening is because due to the pandemic, many people's children have to stay at home, and therefore they have to spend more time with them, and they can't be employed at the same time. Also, some people have been looking for work for a very long time and have been struggling to find a job, so they have just given up altogether. So now I'm going to explain why people stop, people who stop looking for work lower the unemployment rate, and that's because of some of the things we learned in class, which have to do with the labor force. So the labor force consists of employed and the unemployed. So the unemployed have to actively be seeking work. So the fact that people have stopped actively seeking work means that they're not part of the labor force. And a discouraged worker is someone who stopped looking for work because they've just given up and they haven't been able to find anything. So they are actually not employed and not part of the labor force because they're not actively looking for work. And they're also not unemployed either. So, now we're going to move on to an example. So here's an example with some numbers to kind of just show how people who stop looking for work lower the unemployment rate. Um, and we can see that in this example. So here, let's say we have a labor force of 10 people, so a total of unemployed and employed people equal 10. And the unemployed, let's say there's 2 people who are unemployed out of the 10. So the unemployment rate, as seen on the previous slide, is going to be the unemployed over the labor force. So that's 2 out of 10, which is 20% here. And let's say that one employed worker becomes a discouraged worker, and that's because he hasn't been able to find a job, and he's just given up. So what would happen then? So since he's not actively looking for work anymore, he's not unemployed, and since the labor force consists of unemployed and employed, he's not unemployed and he's not employed either, because he doesn't have a job. So that means that the labor force will not include him anymore, so it'll be 9, and the unemployed will be 1. So now if we recalculate the unemployment rate after this factor, we can see that the unemployed is 1, the labor force is 9, so 1 divided by 9 is equal to 11.11%, and we can see that it, the unemployment rate has dropped from 20% to 11.11%, and that kind of just shows how um, it works in the real world too. So that was just a quick explanation of how discouraged workers can affect the unemployment rate and labor force participation.